All right, I got John Kohler with me. He's a 25-year raw vegan. It's amazing. He's got a crazy story. He runs 3 different channels: OK Raw, Discount Juicers, and organic gardening, which is the biggest. Actually, I was surprised. I looked at it again today. I can't grow, so I haven't looked at it in a while. But go check them out. Discountjuicers.com is actually where I got my juicer, and eventually going to get a vacuum blender there as well. Amazing stuff. Welcome to the channel.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, I'm
glad to be here.
Yeah. So you have a crazy story. I didn't realize just how crazy it was until I saw your interview on Jillian's. I didn't realize the reason that you got into raw was because it basically saved your life. So I guess let's start there, so everybody kind of knows your background and why you did the whole thing.
Yeah, sure. So I got into raw vegan diet back in 1995 because I almost died a few years earlier in the hospital. The doctor, I was sick. I had spinal meningitis. I went to the hospital and the doctor said, you might not make it out alive. And I mean, that's not a fun place to be at any age, but especially, I mean, I just had graduated college and I'm like, oh my God, this is the end of my life, sitting in a hospital, watching TV with a spinal tap. They like jacked up my back. I was like in pain. And it's like, I might not have ever left that hospital. And so, I mean, that's when I really realized, like when I was in the hospital, like what's really important. Like, even if I had $1 million, which I had nowhere near $1 million at that point, like I was like basically in debt, you know, I couldn't write a check, Mr. Doctor, $1 million, they're not cash unless John walks out alive. Money could not have saved me. And yet in America today and around the world today, most people work their brains out for dollars and they sacrifice their health. It happens all the time. And, you know, luckily, over the many years, I've set up my life to like not focus on money, but to focus on having the best health. And so I do things that may be considered weird by a lot of people, like, you know, in my backyard, gardening this morning. I grow my own food. I have like 24 raised beds of like greens and leafy greens and really super high quality food, literally money can't buy. Monday, I spent actually most of the day at the wholesale produce terminal, like sourcing the best organic food for the lowest cost and being able to get a wide variety. I mean, just right before this, actually, I was juicing. I made 8 quarts of green, actually 8 quarts plus another 24 ounces, or maybe even 9 quarts of green juice that I'll be drinking over the next week. So that, you know, and it took several hours to do this. And like most people, like, that's too much work, I'm not going to do it. But like, to me, it's all about my life is on the line. And I've always thought that way since I got out of the hospital. I'm like, okay, and how can I live the healthiest way possible? And I'm living the healthiest way I think is possible. I mean, I'm always learning and improving and growing, but I think most Americans would be really good to adopt even just a few things I do, some of these crazy things I do to enrich their life. And I learned, you know, at a young age that, like, you know, I was kind of led to raw foods, which was like a really good thing at the time. And, you know, there's definitely some misinformation in raw foods that may not be entirely accurate based on what I've learned since I've been raw. But for the most part of the time being raw, since I started being raw in 1995, for like 25 years, I pretty strict 99.9% raw. The last couple of years, I started introducing more heat processed foods for very specific reasons. And it's not just, I'm not just eating any cooked foods at a vegan restaurant, or I don't go to McDonald's. I mean, I only heat processed foods at home. I usually don't go out to eat still because you can't control what they're making you. And I only will heat process with an Instant Pot so it doesn't get too hot and create carcinogens. So I usually basically end up using it as a pressure steamer. So it cooks more quickly, preserves more nutrients in there on foods that I don't necessarily eat raw, or in some cases, so that I could eat more vegetables from my garden.
And you talk about microbiome a lot. I think that's one of the main things that I actually get from your OK Raw and your Discount Juicers channel. What's the best way to reset or you know, create a microbiome that's healthy and keeps you from, you know, having ailments and whatever somebody's going through right now?
So the first thing I'm gonna say is that I am not a microbiome scientist. I don't study this stuff, although I listen to many podcasts, lectures, and read scientific journal published studies from people that do do that stuff. Yeah. So that's what I'm going to share with you guys, what I'm doing for myself. I'm not a doctor, and if you guys have a medical issue, please see and consult a medical practitioner. I am not one. So here's the thing, man. This is what I tried to do myself personally. So, there's many influences that can positively shape our microbiome. We're all set up with our microbiome as a child. If we were like, vaginally or C-section birthed, if we're breastfed or not. And also our diet. I mean, I was fed like Nestle's formula when I was a kid. And in my personal opinion, based on some of the stuff I've seen, that does not set somebody up with a really good, healthy microbiome. So if you're a woman, if you're going to have kids, please breastfeed your kids, have a vaginal birth if possible. These things have shown to be more beneficial, in my personal opinion. But of course, we can only change now. We can't change. I can't I wasn't breastfed. Wasn't whatever. That's all in the past. So now I got to deal with the repercussions. So, I mean, the most research out there says that the wider diversity of foods you eat and the different kinds of fibers you eat, the better your diversity of like microbiome, like gut buddies you will have inside you. And so that's like the basics. But then now there's like in like December 2021, there's a new study that came out that showed even better than diversity on some levels, not all levels, is eating probiotic rich foods. So we want to now eat raw probiotic rich foods that, that are alive, not the ones that are pasteurized, and eat wide varieties of fiber. And then there's like so many other things that I'm going to actually make a video on. And of course, some of these things are just from my brain that I think would be helpful, like grow your own garden. I mean, I introduce soil bacteria and different beneficial bacteria into my garden for my plants because it's the whole food soil web, which is basically the soil microbiome that makes the plants healthy. And then I eat the plants that I grew in my garden, and I get some of those microbiome, influences and bacteria and hopefully good guys in me too. So, I mean, there's so many different things, but the basics are wide varieties of foods and different types. So like, here's the thing, like there's studies that show that like purple sweet potatoes, have resistant starch, and it's like a really good resistant starch, but whether you eat it raw, you're going to get, this resistant starch in one way. If you cook it, then you're going to get a different resistant starch. But if you cook it and then cool it, then you have like, according to scientific studies, you have like the best resistant starch that your microbiome is really going to go crazy over. So then there's three kinds of fibers from just one kind of food. And depending on how you process it, the fibers could change and have different effects on your microbiome. So then I could say, well, I'm only ever going to cook it and cool it because that's the best way according to this study. But do I really know it's the best way? So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to eat it raw. So I juice purple sweet potatoes and they can be eaten raw. You could spiralize them if you got to be true raw and you don't want to heat stuff. I also eat them heat processed without cooled. And then I eat them heat processed and then cooled. So now I'm getting all the different ranges of the different fibers, resistant starches from the purple sweet potatoes in me. Because I mean, I don't know which one is really best. And I think that nature has taught me from gardening and growing food and living this lifestyle is that, we want to try and include the spectrum. Now, it's true that some people might benefit more from this kind of starch than that, but I'm not the expert to tell you guys what to do. So that's why I just try to do all of them and then see what agrees with me and see how I feel after I eat different kinds of starch and different kinds of plants and different fibers.
I'm actually interested that you're talking about starches. So now, so you're not going to suggest like a regular white potato, but you would suggest like the colored, the colored sweet potatoes. But what if somebody wanted to juice? I mean, have you ever juiced like the different like sweet potatoes or even just regular potatoes? I mean, or cabbage, because I was just watching something about red cabbage having a lot of cancer fighting agents and whatnot. Do you think it's a good idea to juice these things, or do you think it's it's not a very good idea? You kind of stay away from juicing it, maybe heat process it.
So, I mean, every different form of processing will give you different fibers, and I think it's all good. And as you know, if you watch me and people that watch me, they know that I'm a big advocate for eating rich colored foods, especially the purple foods, which most Americans do not eat. I mean, there's scientific studies showing that if you eat a standard russet potato, which I don't even think maybe I had one like months ago because I got it for free or cheap anyways, but I never eat those because those will negatively impact your blood sugar. And by no means am I saying eat a starch-based diet. I think starch-based diets are maybe not the smartest thing to do personally for your health. I mean, Definitely people have lived on starch for many years and you could live quite healthily. But my question is, I believe that you could live healthier if you don't live a starch-based diet completely, but include some starch, for you. So like I eat purple potatoes, standard potatoes, and then I rarely eat any other color of potatoes because I just really like the purple ones. They tend to be not sweet, actually. And plus the anthocyanins to me are so important. And then on the standard potatoes, like regular orange sweet potatoes, which I rarely ever buy. If it's on sale or like it's clearance for super cheap and they're gonna throw it away, like I'll probably take it and cook it. I might eat a little bit, but then give it to my dog. But I basically only buy purple sweet potatoes and purple potatoes. And some purple potatoes are a scam because they're just purple on the outside and then they're just light colored purple on the inside. And they're mostly white. I hate those. I like the ones that are deep purple on the inside, man, because the ones that are lightly purple on the inside, they don't have as much of the anthocyanin and they tend to be more sweeter. And I'm not eating these things for extra calories. I'm eating these things for extra fiber and more importantly, those anthocyanins. And so today I drank red cabbage. I think everybody should drink red cabbage. And actually in the juice today, it had red cabbage, purple sweet potatoes, carrots, beets, jicama, ginger, and I probably put maybe some apples or pineapples as the sweetener in there. And so, and I had some purple carrots in there too also. So like, that's just that's my root juice recipe that I make. So I could just include a wide variety. And I want to remind everybody, when you juice things, right, you remove some of the fiber, but not all the fiber. So in general, you will keep the soluble fiber because it solubilizes in water, dissolves in the water, in the liquid, and you get rid of the insoluble fiber. And some juices may keep more insoluble fiber because there's a lot of, pulp in there. Like I strain my insoluble fiber out. But like, for example, like I made a smoothie yesterday with blueberries. We kept all the fiber in there, but that like thing gelled up really hardcore because my friend didn't drink it like as fast as I did. But even if you juice like something pectin rich, like I juice like oranges, or I know it was grapefruits, and it was the juice was so thick because there's still tons of fiber in there. But if you juice pineapple, you're going to get rid of 90% of the fiber and only keep 10% of the juice because there's very little soluble fiber in pineapples. And then carrots are about 50-50. So if you're juicing carrots, you're still keeping about half the fiber, you're getting rid of the other half. And the benefit of removing some of the fiber from these vegetables are you get a greater uptake and a better uptake, faster uptake of some of the phytonutrients, some of the vitamins like beta carotene they've done studies on. So that kind of goes into your bloodstream faster. And this is very important for people like that have some kind of disease they're fighting that they need to heal from.
Okay. While we're talking about juicing, somebody told me that, and I've juiced celery and carrots forever now, but somebody told me they're extremely acidic and that you shouldn't juice them. I guess some Dr. Sebi was talking about this, but I don't know. I tried to look into this, but I couldn't find any information. What are your thoughts on carrots being acidic and not juicing them along with celery?
So here's the thing. So Dr. Sebi, he's on his own thing, unfortunately, he's not even around anymore to carry on his work. But maybe he would change what he's preaching now because I'm always fluid. I'm always changing my messaging. So if you watch me from 10 years ago, my videos, I might be counteracting and saying something different today because I've learned different. But some people like to stick to what they learned and they don't want to ever go out of their box. And I think it's quite sad that some teachers in raw foods stick to their box and there's new science, new emerging information, and they're still sticking in their box and not kind of like changing their approach to benefit people because they wrote the book and they can't, they don't want to like write a new book or make revisions or something. I don't really know, or they got their life on the line because like, this is what they're known for. Now they can't be known for that because they're changing. I don't know. But so here's what I'm going to say is like, he had this really different ideas about hybridized foods and what was hybridized and what wasn't. I believe he believed that carrots were a hybridized food, and because it's a hybridized food, it's a bad food. And so he's really, I have made a whole video on Dr. Sebi and hybridized foods, and I talked about my personal opinions on this. I personally do not think that hybridized foods are necessarily bad, but per se, but it depends the reason why a food is hybridized. And in every case, a food is hybridized for different reasons. It could be hybridized to be like, pink tomato that has a thick skin that bounces and has no flavor, and you're breading the nutrients out of it. In that case, that's not a good hybridized food. Do I still eat some tomatoes that bounce it's rare that I buy crappy tomatoes like that because I usually get hothouse ones, and usually they're a lot more red and they taste a lot better. But then some foods have been hybridized for phytonutrients. I'm growing, I made a video today about it, the indigo rose tomato. And these are like purple tomatoes that were bred at OSU in Oregon State, for anthocyanin content. And actually, it's one of the first tomatoes that was bred for anthocyanin content, which is the purple pigment. Brown tomatoes don't actually have the anthocyanin content. They have like they play with the green gene, so it actually is more of a brown pigment. So, I mean, there's different reasons for hybridizing. And even if I would not, like, to me, carrot juice and any vegetable juice is always gonna be alkalinizing. And it's true. Some vegetables are more alkalinizing than others. But then when we're talking about alkalinizing, we're talking at like certain minerals are more alkaline and certain minerals are more acid. And it's like, I don't really try to think about alkaline acid. I just try to think about eating a wide variety of foods and getting a lot of minerals in me. So my body will just be naturally balanced based on the food if it's being grown properly. And now the other problem we could talk about, which is totally advanced topic because nobody really talks about this, is if you just grow and eat conventional produce, right? What are they feeding the soil to grow the conventional produce? They're feeding NPK, right? 3 main minerals they're concerned with, because they know if they feed these 3 main minerals, the plants grow big and they'll produce fruit and vegetables and whatnot. But, if you now take the vegetables that they grew with the NPK and did an analysis on them, they're going to have unnatural levels of NPK because that's what you're putting into the soil. But I don't want NPK. I want a vegetable with all the different minerals and trace minerals in, and that's why I like grow my own food, so I could add all these trace minerals up to like 70 to 90 different trace minerals, so my plants could absorb it, and then I get to eat it. So like there's going to be, and then even organic farmers, they don't really pay attention to like the full spectrum of minerals, 70 to 90. They may pay attention to like up to 16, which are shown in horticulture that the plants need. So I mean, there's just so many things, so many just like levels that I've investigated that are just insane. So like I've come up with like grow your own food, grow it in the best soil, eat as much of that as you can, and then I got to fill in with other stuff because I can't grow everything I need on my small little tract home here.
Yeah. Speaking of growing, I mean, if somebody wanted to do this, how much land do you think that somebody would need to actually grow enough to supply themselves? Up here in the north, I don't think you could do it year round, but at least for part of the year, how much land do you think somebody would need to actually grow enough for like maybe a family of 4?
I mean, it depends how much vegetable and fruit consumption you have. I mean, I've never really figured it out myself, and it depends the crops you grow specifically. So some crops will yield, more calories per acre than others. So for example, like sweet potatoes are a good storage crop, and they're going to yield more calories per acre than say leafy greens that are very low calories. And in the tropics in Hawaii, if you grow sweet potatoes, you can have a very small plot of sweet potatoes because they grow year round in the tropics. Whereas up in northern climates, you have a very narrow window of growing those, and you have to get them out of the ground before the ground freezes, or you're gonna lose them. And then you could grow squashes. If you're going to cook squashes, like you got to grow storage crops in the north to have like your stores that you could put in a root cellar like they did in the olden days, and fruits and apples and stuff that you could store for the winter time to eat while you're not growing anything outside. So I mean, the land requirements there, I think, would be a bit different than the land requirements, like say in the tropics, where you could just grow fruit trees, and different fruit trees fruit at different times of the year, and you just have to have a bunch of different fruit trees. And that's if you're basing your diet around fruits. So it's like, I want to grow a little bit of everything because I want to not just focus on fruits, not just focus on vegetables, but have a little bit of everything and, have fun with it.
Speaking of which, do you base your diet around calories, or do you just base it on what nutrients that you want to get in a day? Do you just not even think about it? You just kind of look at what colors you want for the day and just go from there?
Okay. So like, I never focus on calories. I focus on how hungry am I? And if I'm hungry, I'm going to eat. And if I'm not hungry, then I'm going to stop eating. And our bodies are pretty good regulators of regulating calories if we're listening to our true self and our true hunger, and not just our artificial hunger. So true hunger is like felt in the mouth and maybe the throat, and I'm feeling it right now. So after this, I'm gonna get to eat. But yeah, so many people I think are just off balance. So like I focus on how can I include some of the more nutritious foods in my diet every day? So for example, like today, what did I eat? So today I got up, I drank water, and the first thing I had was that juice. I had that root juice. Normally I'd have my green juice, but I'm out of green juice because I've been traveling. I just got back and I've been so busy catching up with work. I haven't been able to even make my green juice. So then I had my root juice, and then I had like 1.5 papayas, organic papayas to eat. And then after that, then I was starting to make my green juice. And then I had like a double size, like 2 pints of like organic raspberries. And then I had some of my green juice when I was done making it. I put the other up in the fridge, stored it under vacuum to drink it later. And then next I'm going to have like a salad. So I have like a pre-made salad. I think I just posted the picture on Instagram. It's basically a pepper, mango dressing with like baby kale and like lettuce, organic lettuce from my garden, like fresh picked, with all kinds of other vegetables chopped up in there. And then after that, I'll probably have like a couple cooked artichokes in the Instant Pot, and then maybe some beans, and maybe like, I don't know. We'll see what happens. If I'm still hungry, then I have some cooked greens in the fridge I might eat, or I don't know.
Now, speaking of, a lot of people actually ask me about juicing. Where would you suggest somebody start? Get a couple juicers or a single juicer, like a Nama or a vacuum blender? I mean, if somebody came up to you and said that they just wanted to do, I don't know, fruit mostly, what would you suggest? Or if somebody came up to you and said you wanted to do roots mostly, what would you suggest?
I mean, juicers are so nuanced. So, I mean, if you gave me the exact specifications of what you want to juice, I could tell you the best juicer for that. It's hard to say, just buy this juicer. It's the best in all cases.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if you came up to me and said, hey, you're selling me shoes, or I'm going to buy shoes. Like, hey, just give me the best pair of shoes. Like, well, are you going to go to the beach? You need water socks. You need like hiking shoes. You're going to go to like a nice event. You need like some tuxedo shoes. Like, you're just going to go walking like at a trade show and you need some comfortable shoes, or you're going to go running. So it's like, there's so many kinds of shoes and there's so many kinds of juicers. So it's hard to say like, but what I tell people in most cases is this. I would say, go to YouTube, watch my video called The Best Juicers for 2022, the best 3 juicers for 2022. And in that video, I share the best 3 juicers for 2022 and probably pretty much of all time, because those are the ones that I'd recommend the most. They're the most advanced. And in there's the Nama J2, which is probably the best for like, if you want to juice like lots of fruits and just mix juices and do bulk quantities like I do. Then you got the Santa 727. That's the juicer if you really want to focus on like more green vegetables and even with some roots. And it's also, you don't like cleaning because that thing's easy to clean. And then if you want the maximum nutrition and don't mind extra work, you could get a vacuum blender if your recipe is properly adjusted for a vacuum blending, because not every recipe can be juiced in a vacuum blender. And I have videos explaining how to do that. You need at least, 50% watery fruits or 50% watery vegetables to make it happen. And then you need to blend it. They need to wring it out in a nut milk bag, which is some work,
Yeah.
So it depends. Like I made 8 quarts. I wouldn't be vacuum blending 8 quarts of juice, although it would store longer and have more nutrition. I'd still be doing it, and I wouldn't be able to talk to you right now. So I use the Nama. So I made 8 quarts probably within a little bit over an hour and a half or so.
Oh, wow. That's pretty fast.
Yeah. I just posted a video earlier this week, how I made 7 quarts in the video live in front of people in 55 minutes. So, I did a little bit more, plus the recipe today was a little bit more intricate than the recipe I did in the video.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So now do you suggest juice fasts or do you think that that's not very good? If you did, like, what kind of juices would you suggest somebody do on a juice fast?
So, I'll be honest, juice fasting is not my favorite, because what I've seen happen in the past is somebody will go on a juice fast and they'll cleanse and they'll lose weight and they'll feel good. And then once they're done with the juice fast, they cleanse and lost weight. Then they go back to what they were doing to gain the weight again. And then they got to juice fast again. So they're juice fasting, eating crappy, juice fasting, eating crappy. And then it's just like this ping pong stuff.
Yeah.
And it's too insane. So like, I would rather have somebody just like drink juice on a regular and everyday basis. And that's what I do. Like I call it, and I'm going to make a video one day, so please nobody take this idea. I'm going to call it a perpetual juice cleanse, not a fast, a cleanse. Because most of my days I drink 2 quarts of juice for most of half the day. And then I eat maybe a meal of fruit and a meal of vegetables, basically, with some variation in there. And drinking juice every day and offsetting and not eating food for 2 of your meals, or at least one meal, or maybe your morning and a mid-morning snack, I think can make a bigger difference in somebody's life, even if you still eat garbage and your junk food at the end of the day, because at least half the day you're eating really good stuff. You're drinking juice, which is like, not too many things are healthier than that. So I'd much rather have somebody go on a perpetual juice cleanse and drink higher volumes of juice on a daily basis than, ping pong from juice fasting and and you still will get the results. Of course, along with that is I would recommend people also eat more fruits and vegetables and other plant foods. And, instead of a juice cleanse, just, or a juice fast or solid food vacation, drink juice and then just eat some healthy plant foods for the rest of the day and call it a day. I mean, I think that'll serve somebody a lot more in the long run than a juice fast. Now, there's times and places for juice fast too. If I was in a chronic health situation and I need to really, change what I was doing, I'd go into a juice fast for a specific amount of time. I don't even know if I'd set a time on it. I'd kind of check on myself and see how I felt every day, and then do that. And then on my juice fast, I would pretty much do what I'm kind of doing now. I'd make a anti-inflammatory juice, which would be like ginger, turmeric, ginseng. This time of year, I'm using like pomegranates in there and rosemary. And I put cloves in there and black pepper. And then I do a root juice, which is I explain what's in that. Basically, the red cabbage, carrots, orange carrots, purple carrots, beets, jicama, some ginger in there, maybe some apple for sweetener, purple sweet potatoes. And then I'll do a green juice with like basically romaine, celery or cucumber base with additional kale or collard greens, or like today I used a whole bunch of bok choy and kale, like bolting tops. I put a few apples in there. Normally I don't do apples, and then I put a lemon in there too this time because I made so much because I want to preserve it better. And then and then for calories on a juice fast, I'd probably do some kind of like fruit/vegetable juice. I wouldn't just do a straight fruit juice. So like I do like a bunch of beets with some pineapple. So the beets will kind of help balance out the sweetness of the pineapple. So you're not just getting like so much pineapple.
Yeah.
Because I'm not really a fan of straight up fruit juices. I know some people and some doctors and different people recommend fruit juicing as your optimal way to cleanse. But, I think a balanced approach where you're eating many different kinds of produce items, fruits, roots, leaves, stems, they're all good.
Yeah. You've been raw vegan for a long time. Have you at any one point in the 25 years done just fruitarian? Or what do you think of the whole fruitarian thing?
So so did I only do fruit only with no vegetables ever?
Yeah, just for like an extended period of time, just maybe do only fruits. I mean, even like cucumbers and tomatoes are included in that.
So, I mean, there have been small periods of time when I did like all fruits with very few vegetables, but I don't think there's ever been a time when I just did straight fruits only.
Yeah.
Like I've never really thought that was super optimal personally. And especially knowing what I know now, I mean, if you will watch some of my videos, I mean, I eat a vegetable-based raw foods diet, which is actually quite uncommon. Most people eat a fruit-based raw foods diet. You could eat a fruit-based raw foods diet. It could be very healthy, but I think the main thing is, in my opinion, if you're eating like an all-fruit diet, including non-sweet fruits, without any vegetables, I think that could be quite problematic. And actually, if you look at some of the more recent, no longer raw vegan videos, they did, really high fruit with not enough vegetables. And I believe personally that can imbalance you highly, and then you're more susceptible to not even eating vegan anymore and going back to animal products because you're creating deficiencies in your body personally.
Yeah. And what are your thoughts? I see you eat quite a bit of, well, not quite a bit, but a decent amount of fat. What is because there's a lot of people who are really scared of fat. Like if they're trying to lose weight, they're scared of having too much fat. What is your thought on having fat in your diet? Does it matter, or doesn't it matter?
So, I mean, it's not an easy question of fat or not eating fat. The question is, how much fat and what type of fat is a better question to ask. So I'm not a fan of like ultra low fat diets below 10% of calories from fat. Yeah. Which means no overt fats. Like I'm not a fan of that. I mean, now the next thing is how much am I into like, so I mean, I would say my fat percentage ranges. Like today I've had no additional fat in my diet at this point, up to this point, because I've had juices and I've had fruits. So like, so I wouldn't say I eat high fat. High fat, I think, would be around 30% plus, which is like most Americans eat 30% plus fat.
Okay.
Low fat is below 10. I would say I like to be in the range somewhere between 10 and 20% calories from fat max. So what does that mean to me? It means maybe like a handful of nuts or seeds and like a dressing, and then maybe I eat a few extra additional nuts. And I don't use oils because so now we got the amount of fat between 10 to 20% of calories from fat, which is still relatively low compared to average Americans. Yeah. But more importantly, I'm also concerned with the type of fat. So I'm not like just dousing stuff with olive oil, despite having high polyphenol content on some of them. Some of them have zero, because polyphenols are a good thing. There's better ways to get polyphenols in olive oil, in my opinion, like eat olive leaves, or, I eat olives.
Yeah.
But anyways, eat whole food sources of fat. So eat some avocado, eat some coconut, if you could tolerate some extra saturated fat in your diet. Eat whole nuts and seeds. So I like to eat whole nuts and seeds. I mean, there's studies showing that people that eat, vegans that eat nuts versus vegans that don't eat nuts have a better life expectancy and live longer. So it's like, if you want to shorten your life and live by this dogma that's out there with some raw food camps teach, like that's your prerogative. You guys can do whatever you guys want to do. I do what I do for very specific reasons, like for my health and for longevity. Now, the other thing, fats could get even more complicated, because now if you're eating certain types of, like, if you just like your default fat is almonds. I just eat almonds every day, John. I eat a handful of almonds or two. You're really going to jack up your omega-3 to 6 balance, because almonds are very imbalanced, really high in omega-3s. High in omega-6s, not in omega-3s.
Yeah.
And now your omega-3 to 6 balance. So like, I'll be doing an EPA DHA test really soon and making it public. And my numbers are not going to be perfect. I know it already. And I pay attention to these things. So I'm really concerned about most vegans or raw vegans that they're just haphazardly eating any old kind of nuts and not really eating enough flax seeds to off balance, the omega-3 to 6s they're eating. But now here's a cool thing. If you eat fruits and vegetables in a good healthy ratio without any overt fats, your omega-3 to 6 balance will be perfect.
Yeah, it does seem like that. Now, when I saw the interview with her, you said something
perfect.
You said something about having your microbiome test done. Is that something that you think everybody should do? Or is
so I just got a ombre microbiome test that I hope to do a video about that relatively soon. And I mean, it's still relatively new information and like a new testing. So I'm not 100% confident in its like if it's accurate or not, because I don't really know. But I think it's good to just check in and see where you're at, because it might surprise you.
Yeah, I'd imagine it would. Yeah, because I've kind of struggled with that, and people on my channel kind of struggle with that whole thing. Kind of a random question. I saw that there's a carafe that goes on the Vitamix that you can do a vacuum blend on. If you're just doing smoothies, do you think that would be a worthwhile investment, or would you be better off like something with the Tri-Best that kind of has a wider carafe and can kind of do anything?
So in any case, I always recommend vacuum blending over not. And I think that everybody that's into their health should be vacuum blending as soon as they're able to. However they're able to vacuum blend, even if that means converting a NutriBullet into a vacuum blender for $20, like I have a video on, because when I learned about the technology of vacuum blending, they were not available in the US yet. And I'm like, how can I vacuum blend? I can't buy these machines. They're not even being made or sold in the US yet. So then I had to figure out how I could make my own. And ever since I started doing it, I mean, and some of the videos I made with, other friends and people that I've gotten into vacuum blending, I mean, they just rant about it now. They just won't go back. But I mean, it's quite unfortunate that most people, I've been blending this way for 20 years. And I thought that too when I first learned about it. I'm like, it can't be any good, man. I've been a raw foodist for 20 years. I've been using my Vitamix.
Yeah.
And that's good. Well, there's something better, guys, now. And it sucks to have to retrain your brain and try something new and even pay some money for some stuff to do it. But I try to make that affordable to people. I don't need to sell them the thing to make it on your Vitamix. I mean, I had videos showing how you could buy a $55 vacuum blender on eBay, which actually was disappeared and then it came back for a while. Now they're gone again. And I don't care what vacuum blender you use, but the message is use a vacuum blender and you'll see the difference that it makes. So the question is, should you get the carafe for the Vitamix versus buying a DynaPro? So I say I have a video on that so you can see the differences.
You do. Yeah.
Each one has its pros and cons. Like, I mean, I'm looking at both right here, but I would personally, I have 2 Vitamixes, but I would personally, here's what I'll say. I'll say that I never use the BioChef carafe that fits on the Vitamix. I never use that except if I'm making a video.
Okay.
Because the performance is just not satisfactory to me, but also I'm very particular about my appliances. And if you're just like, if you don't really care and you don't care about the texture and you just wanted vacuum blending because John said it was good and you just got to do it. I mean, there's plenty of people that are happy with it that maybe don't have as high a standards as I do. And then I have friends that said, oh, going from the vacuum blending, like the BioChef is actually an improvement on our Vitamix craft because we think the blades are sharper. I think the blades are duller. And I've made videos showing that it doesn't grind up as fine. But on the other hand, I would have a texture that's not as fine. I would give up the texture for having something vacuum blended versus something finer that's not vacuum blended because you're doing all more oxidation damage. Plus, you're going to get more gas and bloating, and you're going to lose nutritional value.
All right. I think this is going to be my last question. So you see a lot of people doing smoothies and dumping a bunch of sugar into it. What are your thoughts on adding sugar into smoothies? Because they say that the fruit isn't as sweet as it used to be.
So you mean like white powdered sugar?
Yeah.
I mean, there's people still doing that. I mean, I know it was a thing like 10 years ago, but people are still doing that. I think that is really, 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 really sad. And that's just not healthy. If you want to do that because you want extra calories, that's one thing. But if you're doing it in the name of health and like trying to live healthier, then you are fooling yourself. Absolutely. Now, if you want to add some extra sweetener to your smoothie, add some dates or even add some date sugar, which is basically dried dates that have been ground up into powder. And then that's at least healthier. But then on the other hand, I would say, we need to even just move towards eating more mineralized foods than more sugary foods. Yes, we have sweet receptors in our mouths and we need our calories every day. But I think it's a bigger problem that people are missing their trace minerals. That's a bigger problem. That's probably one of the reasons for causing excess sugar cravings, in my personal opinion.
All right, perfect. Is there anything that you wanted to close with? Like if somebody was looking into getting into raw, how do you think they should cold turkey it, or do you think they should gradually get into it? And that's going to be my final question as you close it out with that.
Yeah, no worries. So I would always say gradually get into it. Cold turkey it is, you could do great and you could do it. I mean, I did cold turkey when I got into this and I pretty much stuck to it 99%. I mean, there's a few slip ups I had, but I had a big carrot and a stick. My carrot was if I don't do this, I'm going to die. And most people aren't going to die if they don't stick to it. Right.
Yeah.
Because I got out of the hospital and the doctor said I could die and I could get a reoccurrence and it might not be so lucky next time. So I was able to stick with it, but I don't think most people will be able to do it because it's so difficult. So like, I like to encourage people to set yourself up for success, make simple goals that are easy and attainable. Hey, I'm going to eat one raw meal today. I mean, hopefully that should be attainable for everybody. Because if you want a snack, just eat some fruit, eat some bananas. You had a raw meal. Congratulations. You did an amazing job. Pat yourself on the back. Give yourself a gold star, whatever, and then you can do 2 meals. I'm going to eat a fruit and then I'm going to eat a salad. And then maybe if you want to get more complex, you could make a raw smoothie, some frozen bananas, some greens, some coconut water or orange juice, whatever, blend it up into a smoothie. And hopefully you're using a vacuum blender. Even if you're not, it's still great because it's way better than everybody else. And then, next level is you could get into juicing. That's a little bit more, takes more time, but definitely more nutritious. And I would say recommend doing like green juices primarily. Try to do as many leafy greens, get some root vegetables in there, stem vegetables in there, minimize the fruits on the juices, and try to just keep cranking out like one meal a day is raw, then try to keep that for like a week, and then try to do a meal and a half or even 2 meals raw, and then a meal and a snack, and then just keep crowding out the heat processed foods. And then the other thing is on the heat processed foods or other junk foods, just keep trying to minimize them. I don't got to tell you guys that processed foods, McDonald's foods and foods that are pre-made, you go buy at Whole Foods, even if they're vegan or Trader Joe's, I mean, that stuff ain't healthy. They're adding oil, they're adding salt, they're adding sugar. It's not good for you guys. Make your own food. If you're going to heat, process, and cook stuff, buy an Instant Pot, steam it in there. John said eat cooked vegetables, not eat raw vegetables if you can. But if you need to cook vegetables as a comfort food, man, cook them in the best way possible. And that's what you're going to find on my channel. That's how I live. I don't need the cooked food to keep raw. I mean, I could do raw if I wanted to, but I believe there to be additional benefits that I'm going to get by eating some heat processed foods that I can't get eating only raw foods. And that's why I'm doing it.
All right. Perfect. Thanks for joining me, John. I'm going to link every one of his channels and all of his content. Go check out discountjuicers.com. Get yourself a juicer. And thanks for joining me.
All right, man. It's a pleasure.
Thanks.